A13. Hashtag Merit Federal. Subtitle Danger. APnews.com. Hashtag VersTV A13A. U.S. News. A federal proposal to reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug has raised the hopes of some pot backers that more states will embrace cannabis. By David A. Leib. As the U.S. government moves toward reclassifying marijuana as a less dangerous drug, there may be little immediate impact in the dozen states that have not already legalized cannabis for widespread medical or recreational use by adults. But advocates for marijuana legalization hope a federal regulatory shift could eventually change the minds and votes of some state policymakers who have been reluctant to embrace weed. It is very common for a state legislator to tell me, well, I might be able to support this, but I'm not going to vote for something that's illegal under federal law, said Matthew Schweik, executive director of the Marijuana Policy Project, which advocates for cannabis legalization. Although a proposal to reclassify marijuana would not make it legal, it is a historic and meaningful change at the federal level that I think is going to give many state lawmakers a little less hesitation to support a bill, Schweich added. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration has proposed to shift marijuana from a Schedule I drug, which includes heroin and LSD, to a less tightly regulated Schedule III drug, which includes ketamine and some anabolic steroids. Article continues below.
All right. So I feel that I must start off stating this. I have never have I ever smoked a day in my life of anything. I will say that. And do I believe that weed, marijuana, let me stop, should be legal? Yes. And I've even gotten into discussions with people in my family who disagree with me, and that is fine. I do stand on my point. And I also say cigarettes are what took my mom from me, right? And cigarettes are totally legal. You just have to have the money, and the prices are going to keep going up, and people are going to keep. That's going to take me on a tangent. But I get it, because now that we've found a way to make weed profitable, that's why it's like, oh, well, we can go ahead and make weed legal. And I think that's not that's a selfish reasoning. I think it's a selfish reasoning that can yield a positive outcome. So it's like, well, it's okay. Well, people can make money off of it now, so fine. Okay, that's what's going to make it legal? Fine. And I connect this public debate to a similar public debate when I was a little bit younger, i.e. late teens and 20s, i.e. under former President Bush, when we had the big debates about legalizing, I forgot the name of it just that fast, stem cell research, legalizing stem cell research. And people were like, oh no, and at the time, like I said, I was around that age, and I didn't fully understand the problem people were saying, but I did hear that people say stuff like, oh, it's like having stem cells is like, even though the stem cells are already there, but whatever. Having stem cells, doing research on stem cells is like humans trying to play God. And I didn't understand at that point. Therefore I didn't really have much of a perspective on it either way. And also I was a little young. So it was like, oh, wow, people are complaining about stem cells. I guess that's a thing. And now that as I am somebody who is 40, I'm 40, living with the multiple sclerosis diagnosis. Whew, I acknowledge that there are things that could have been better in life for a number of people with a number of diagnoses. I will say specifically multiple sclerosis diagnosis. And I feel that we could have been farther along with what would make it better for people with MS diagnoses. And I know in Cleveland is an amazing city. Yet another Cleveland woman, my understanding, was a radio personality, and MS started like really catching up to her or whatever, and she couldn't continue as a result. And she got stem cells, and stem cells for her made it all better. Stem cells are extremely ridiculously expensive, particularly right now. And I blame the fact that we didn't get that 10 to 15-year head start, that we're not farther along with it. And stem cells, then and this hits close to home. A friend of mine who I met, I actually in 2013 went with Kevin to see this natural healer in his Atlanta office. Technically, he's largely out of another country, but he had an Atlanta office until COVID, but that's another story. But if you're somebody who's fighting through multiple sclerosis, I will say go to his website as well, in addition to all of your other research. And his website is noelbatten.com, and that's NOELBATTEN.com. Technically, he's in Australia right now. Anyway, but yeah, Kevin and I went to see him, and we met another woman who was in our similar age range, who was fighting multiple sclerosis. And we all became friends because also coincidentally, and I don't think this has any medical significance, but coincidentally, all three of us were same gender loving people. So like we really connected. And I remember years later, in trying to get things better for herself, she paid all of those very ridiculously expensive amount of money because she was still in a wheelchair. Paid that insane amount of money to go get stem cell treatment. Her father actually sold one of his houses, or sold his house or something, to allow her to finance that trip to California.